stigma, learning some of those skills like difficult dialogue, understanding implicit bias, doing critical self-reflection, then this is a great opportunity for the members on your team. Because not only will they learn about stigma, they'll do a great deal of internal work to evaluate where they're at and the position they sit, how they can impact stigma, but also they'll learn about those strategies, those approaches, and those tips as we discussed earlier for not only addressing HIV-related stigma, but for also talking about cultural humility, cultural competency, and how do we really deepen those efforts in our work to improve the health outcomes for the people that we're serving. And John, our partners from TRX, will share later what's another really cool thing, great takeaway from Escalate is I always like to say, stigma becomes tangible and stigma becomes real after you participate in Escalate. So if your health department has ever said, you know, we really want to do something about stigma, but we don't know where to start. We don't know how to assess where our organization is in relation to stigma. The Escalate training is a really great opportunity for you as well, because as a part of the training, everyone completes what we call the EOSA, the Escalate Organizational Self-Assessment. And that's really designed to identify opportunities to address HIV-related stigma within your organization or within your community. Beyond just completing the EOSA and having a really good, concise understanding of where you're at in addressing stigma, we then create an action plan that organizations are challenged with taking back to their community, back to their organization, and implementing that action plan based on what they've captured within that assessment. So John will share more about some really great evaluation tools that we're utilizing and that we're developing that we hope can become game-changing and monumental for how we assess stigma, how we measure it, and then how we develop a plan for combating stigma locally within our organizations and communities. And this is one of my favorite slides. So what are the benefits of participating in training? And this is a direct quote from one of our participants. Escalate training establishes a common foundation and framework for eliminating stigma. And this was her takeaway after participating in Escalate training. The beauty of Escalate training is it now provides potentially all of the members on your stigma reduction team or potentially all of the members of your organization. They now are operating from that common foundation and framework. Everyone is operating from the same knowledge base. Everyone has a similar understanding of the challenges of stigma and also the frameworks for eliminating stigma as well. So Escalate training is a great opportunity if you're looking to establish that foundation, to establish that framework for eliminating stigma across your organization, and you want individuals to have that buy-in, then I would say Escalate is a great training opportunity for folks who work within your health department. As we said, participants will also learn how to facilitate transformational and relational change. They will learn how to facilitate changes within their organization, but also within the communities they serve as well. And one of the most important takeaways from Escalate is that folks will walk away with a much deeper, broader understanding of cultural humility among people living with HIV and worldwide HIV/AIDS providers and professionals. So, how can you engage and escalate? One particular way to engage and escalate is to put together a stigma reduction team. A stigma reduction team is a collaboration between communities and organizations because we believe if we're going to do this work, if it's going to be impactful, it must be a collaboration between our health departments, our organizations, and the communities that we serve. So a stigma reduction team must have at least one person that is working for either your health department or your funded organization or agency, along with at least one person living with HIV as well. That's all you need. We can accept a maximum of 6 people to a stigma reduction team, but at a minimum, to get this work started, sometimes all you need are 2 really inspired people that can take the work and bring it back to the rest of the group. So at a minimum, 2 people is what we're requiring. Now, some folks have found it challenging. How do we engage community members who are living with HIV who are not working for our organizations? So places to consider: start at your local community advisory board. Do you have a community advisory board for your division? I know most planning councils have planning bodies, planning councils, advisory boards, consumer advisory boards. So start thinking of those groups that have people that are already active, that are already engaged in the process, and maybe more willing to take on this training opportunity. Definitely share the message with planning councils, local planning council members, and also for people who receive services. I know this webinar is intended specifically for health departments, but if it's a direct service organization, start by asking the folks that come in your door, sharing the information with them about Escalate, and just asking them if they would like to be a part of it. Because once again, our goal, if we want to create meaningful, lasting, impactful change, we really believe in the collaboration between community and organizations. So what are the expectations for folks to participate in training? It does occur over 5 sessions. There is a total of 30 hours commitment to participate in training. You can participate as a stigma reduction team, as we mentioned earlier. So you can put together a team. They can go through the Escalate training with other organizations across the country as a cohort, or we can actually work within your health department and you can receive organizational training for your entire team. The great thing about COVID is that it's forced us to be versatile in how we deliver our training curriculum. So we can actually offer the training curriculum in multiple ways. We can deliver it in person, we can do a hybrid, we can do a virtual. So we're really interested in having conversations with your health department about what are your needs, what are your challenges, and how can we work together to bring Escalate to your health department or to your community. Here are some upcoming dates. As I mentioned, if you're interested in putting together a stigma reduction team and sending a cohort through a national training, these are our upcoming dates. April 11th through 15th, we're doing a virtual training. May 16th through 20th, we are having our first in-person training. June 13th through 16th, we're in Los Angeles, California. You can go to targethiv.org/escalate to apply for these training opportunities. Just a quick tidbit of information for you all. You do receive a full scholarship for participating in the Escalate cohort. So let's say, for example, I know we have some folks from, I believe, maybe New York. So let's say the New York folks, let's say they want to participate in the Dallas training. You will receive a scholarship if you're accepted to the training. So we will cover your flight, we will cover your hotel, and meals and per diem for you. So not only is it a great training opportunity, it's a great opportunity for your health department, individuals within your organizations to go out and build networks around the country, to learn from other folks that are doing stigma work. So it's a really great opportunity to participate if you'd like to join one of our Escalate cohorts. But as I mentioned, you can also work with our Escalate team to schedule an organizational or community training around your schedule. And that can be in person, that can be virtual, or that can be hybrid. So to sum it up, as I mentioned earlier, the Escalate training, from my perspective, is really about establishing the foundation, establishing a core framework, a core mindset for your team, for your organization as you go on and you continue to do stigma reduction work. And now I'll turn it over to my colleague, Cora, who will share some important updates on Escalate in Espanol.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Terrell, for this first part of the presentation. My name is Cora Treyes Cartagena, pronouns she, ella, and I am the HIV Systems coordinator here at NMAC at the Center to End the Epidemic, and I'm very proud to announce our version in Spanish for Escalate. And to Terrell's point, we often think about stigma. We might all know what it feels like, but we have not had the opportunity to share and learn more about it in a workshop training capacity. And we also have identified, we continue to explore that in the training, that stigma affects our clients' ability to even get tested all the way to remaining virally suppressed. So we want to focus on that at all levels, starting with prevention and making sure that everyone stays in treatment. So we think about how stigma might be a barrier at each level. And we also were intentional within NMAC, since we lead with race, to offer this in Spanish, because language can also be an additional barrier to HIV care along with stigma. Therefore, we want to make sure that we offer this program in Spanish for those that are Spanish monolingual or bilingual. If you work with a Latinx community, like we learned earlier in the presentation, the Latinx community is a strong focus for our trainings. So we are scheduled to launch the very first training in Spanish in Miami, and that's scheduled for August 2022. From the 15th to the 19th. You can find more information in our website, targethiv.gov/escalate. And this is with the whole concept of that language justice component. And that goes along with the cultural humility idea for addressing stigma and for developing the Escalate program itself. So for all of you, please help us spread the word that this is also available in Espanol. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cora. So as I mentioned, if you're interested in applying for Escalate training, you can visit us at targethiv.org/escalate to apply. And unfortunately, our partners at Afton Associates cannot be here with us today, so I'm going to share some information with you around technical assistance. As we mentioned, we were extremely intentional with creating our model for Escalate. As I mentioned earlier, Escalate training really helps to establish a foundation for organizations and a common knowledge and framework moving forward. I like to consider TA really to be the next step or the next level for organizations that are interested in doing and continuing to do the stigma-related work. So technical assistance, or TA as we call it, is developed to increase the capacity and readiness of recipients and subrecipients to address HIV-related stigma within their organizations. So how do we do this? We offer time-limited TA that's tailored to support organizations to address HIV stigma. So we are offering technical assistance to organizations, health departments, community-based organizations, planning councils for up to 9 months. And we utilize our Escalate organizational assessment to tailor our technical assistance and our coaching to the needs of your health department or your organization. And as we said, it's really designed to create organizational level change through targeted work plans. So by participating in technical assistance, you'll also complete an EOSA. You'll work personally with your TA coach. You'll create a work plan that has those targeted goals, and we will help you over that 9-month period to achieve the goals that you have identified through your Escalate organizational assessment and also through your work plans as well. So what can folks expect to gain from being a part of TA? You really gain an opportunity to learn from experts. As I mentioned earlier, we worked with over 65 different subject matter experts to create the Escalate curriculum. We work with a team of over 15 different subject matter experts. So just by being a part of the Escalate program, you now have a network of subject matter experts that you can lean on for assistance in a wide variety of learning areas to help you implement these stigma reduction programs and tools focused on your population. You will receive coaching to overcome hurdles. As I mentioned, each site will be paired with an individual TA coach that will meet with you monthly to help you resolve and overcome those hurdles. You have an opportunity to co-learn from other like-minded organizations. We currently have 10 organizations participating in TA, and approximately 40% of those organizations are health departments. So we do have a great deal of interest from organizations within our first TA cohort that, as I said, are engaged in that co-learning opportunity. John will talk more about some of the tools that we are developing that you'll be able to gain from TA. You'll also be able to gain stronger, more effective, and more responsive programs because that's the goal is to develop programs and services that are going to better serve the communities that you are trying to reach. And lastly, the ability to address gaps in practice, translate evidence to practice, and achieve common goals. So we have a lot that we hope to accomplish through TA. And as I said earlier, training is really the foundation, the building blocks. TA is for folks that are ready to do the work, that are ready to create those goals and work towards accomplishing what we set out in a work plan. So as I mentioned, just some of the things that you'll have access to, you'll have a trained coach, you'll have the individual organizational assessment, the EOSA. You'll have monthly one-on-one accountability check-ins with your TA coach. You'll have a TA coach and organizational trainings. You'll also have an ad hoc TA coach, subject matter expert calls. You'll have affinity calls with other organizations that are receiving other similar TA. And we also, one thing that I think is really cool is we have weekly office hours. We use our assessment data and our work plans with our TA sites to say what are the areas that you most would like training on. And now we offer office hours where our SMEs are leading office hours. So you have a chance to pop in once a week and get a learning session from a subject matter expert specifically on the areas that you've identified you need assistance with. So as you can see, what I really appreciate about TA is it's robust. You really do receive a lot of support. The TA is specialized to meet your needs. And we have really seen our health department start to benefit tremendously from participating in the Escalate TA process so far. So for organizations that are ready to make a commitment, that are ready to receive that support, that can commit to 6 to 9 months of ongoing TA, and you know maybe some goals that you're ready to work on, then I think TA is a great place for your organization to participate in. So as we mentioned earlier, eligibility is the same as training. This is for Brian White's parts A through D. We also have a similar requirement where you must put together a stigma reduction team to be a part of the Escalate TA. And that stigma reduction team, once again, should be a partnership among Ryan White providers and a person living with HIV in your community. And we anticipate that applications for our next TA cycle will open in May of 2022, but that does not have to stop you from reaching out to us. You can feel free to reach out to anyone on our MAC team, and we can get the process started to get you engaged in Escalate TA. All right, and next I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Chris, who will share more about learning collaboratives.
Thank you so much. Great to be here, and appreciate the opportunity to talk about the learning collaboratives. So we're working with our colleagues at NMAC to produce a learning collaborative, which is an initiative in which organizations, if we can move on to the next slide, in which organizations come together to study and apply quality improvement methods to a focused topic area. Organizations typically work together over a 12-month period or longer, and they participate in two types of activities: learning sessions, which are led by subject matter and quality improvement experts, and then action periods, which are the periods in between the learning sessions in which they have an opportunity to implement the practices and strategies that they're learning about. So through co-learning, knowledge creation, the collaborative can address gaps in practice and translation of evidence to practice and achieve common goals. So the Escalate Learning Collaborative, moving on to the next slide, focuses specifically on supporting and testing the implementation of an HIV stigma reduction initiative at each organization that's specifically intended to reduce the impact of HIV stigma, but also other types of stigma that can exacerbate the experience of HIV stigma on a population that, if you were part of the learning collaborative, your organization would choose. So much like TA, each LC brings together organizations that are ready to implement or already implementing stigma reduction activities, provides coaching, opportunities for peer-to-peer learning, collaborative tracking of progress, and support from stigma reduction subject matter experts. Moving on to the next slide. We already have one learning collaborative that's running right now. We intended to actually have 8 organizations. We've ended up having 6 organizations, and our first LC is sort of focusing on sort of building the capacity to address HIV stigma, and we're looking at it through a cultural humility lens. The next learning collaborative is going to be in winter of 2023, going all the way through to summer of the following year, and we're hoping to be able to conduct that with 16 organizations, and that LC is going to focus on another aspect of HIV stigma that will be informed by the interest expressed in the LC2 application and our lessons learned from LC1. Moving on to the next slide, the benefits of participating. I've mentioned, support for implementing strategies to address HIV stigma, opportunities to learn both from experts but from other organizations who are working with you at the same time, implementing stigma reduction initiatives focused either on the same populations or the same types of stigma, coaching, co-learning, and support from like-minded organizations. So going on with the benefits, we also provide on the next slide tools to evaluate your progress and improve assessments. We feel that this will ultimately lead to stronger, more effective, more responsive stigma reduction initiatives and reduce time from innovation to practice, enabling us to address gaps in practice, as I mentioned before, translate evidence to practice, and achieve common goals. So if you're interested in applying, I think it's important to think about what will be required of you. And so this slide looks a little wonky, but basically each organization participating in the learning collaborative will need to identify a primary point of contact, which we are referring to, or whom we are referring to as a stigma reduction change agent, as well as 3 to 5 other members of the organization who will form the stigma reduction team, much like the one that Terrell mentioned earlier. We definitely want to have at least one person on that team who represents the members of the population that your stigma reduction activities will focus on, as well as a range of people representing a wide range of roles and seniority within your organization. And we definitely recommend having not only client-facing staff, such as frontline staff, patient educators, and navigators and providers, but also administrative support staff as well, to make sure that the change that's being made at your organization is an organizational change. Also, in terms of what's required of learning collaborative members, onto the next slide, we're anticipating that our learning collaboratives will take place over a 14-month period. during which team members will need to devote 6 to 10 hours per month in addition to the work that they're currently doing based on their own stigma reduction initiatives that will vary according to the intensity of the efforts. And as I mentioned, we're going to be engaging in live virtual meetings, engaging with our coaches, who we're referring to as our LC liaisons. We're going to put organizations together in groups to work together, and we're calling those affinity groups and holding webinars for affinity groups, and then also evaluation activities that are intended to help build the capacity of organizations to address stigma. Now, I also want to note that we have health departments who are already engaged in the current learning collaborative. I feel like they're benefiting in particular from learning from other organizations, and they're bringing a unique perspective of the current learning collaborative. So we feel like that perspective is an important one, and we'd love to hear from other health departments about participating in the next learning collaborative. So if you'd like to get in touch with us on the next slide, my information is there, and you can use our email address, which is escalate@norc.org. Thank you so much, Terrell.
Thank you, Chris. And next, I'm going to turn it over to John, who is going to share some information with us about our Escalate evaluation.
Great. Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Good. Okay. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you to everyone for taking a little time out of your busy day to learn a little bit about this project Escalate, which is such an important part of the evolution of the Ryan White program and our capacity to help sort of maximize the opportunity for people living with HIV to live a good life, a dignified life, a long life, and a healthy life. Part of that is reducing the kind of stigma and other things that happen around living with HIV that both deter people from seeking services, but moreover, just deny the basic dignity that people ought to have. And so we're so excited to be able to bring the program to you. And my group, we're called TRX Development Solutions. We are the program evaluators for Escalate. And we're involved with the training, the TA, and the learning collaboratives in helping to tell the story of Escalate. That's our approach to evaluation. It's a kind of storytelling about process and impact of activities. And we work across the entire program to help document it, because Escalate is a pilot project of Ryan White. And a pilot project is one that is new. We are learning while we're doing it in terms of trying to understand its impact and its effectiveness. And so that's what we're all about. If you were participating in Escalate, you would note that there's the usual kinds of surveys and other tools that you'd receive in and around training and other activities. And we ask people to help fill those out, because your experience in participating in the program is the expertise that we need on the end of providing Escalate to people. That your expertise as an experienced person who has gone through the process is something that helps us understand how to do it and how to communicate to the Ryan White program in HRSA what's working, what is in need of improvement, what we could do to really bring this and make it reach across the country. That's our goal. As Terrell said earlier, in addition to doing those kinds of evaluation activities that sound more traditional, we also are involved in doing this in an implementation science framework. That means we are building tools with the training team, with the TA team, with the learning collaborative team, that we are testing and helping them and us to understand how to perfect, how to develop, and how to utilize. So Escalate is not just going to be bringing some training and some learning like that. Escalate itself is helping to develop some tools that help people. And a couple of the big ones that we're doing in the evaluation, Terrell sort of mentioned before, but one is the Escalate organizational self-assessment, which is an integral part of training. They use it in training to help trainees identify in their home organization action steps that they can take after training to address stigma. Okay, action steps that are keyed in terms of how they're going through the training to their home environment, so that we're not asking people to come up with ideas that are grandiose and sort of, beyond the capacity to do right now, but rather to think contextually in terms of their own environment, what might be something to do. And that's where using the Escalate organizational self-assessment as a tool is very helpful. So far, we've had about 7 or 8 cohorts go through the training in Escalate during the first year and a half of the project. And overall, the general reaction of participants using it in training has been very positive. It opens one's eyes to how to think about what stigma reduction means in concrete terms. And then besides doing the things that help to enact stigma reduction, how do you also kind of institutionalize a stance of cultural humility and a stance that reduces stigma through policy and other things that organizations receiving Ryan White fundings can do. And our results have been really wonderful, looking at how people have experienced it, how they're utilizing it, and what it's telling us about the state of stigma reduction, prevention, and et cetera across the country. And one of the exciting things about the EOSA, which is Escalate Organizational Self-Assessment Tool, is that we are also developing not just it exists in the form of a survey, I should say, rather, that looks at 4 domains of activity. One is policies and procedures about HIV stigma and other stigmas in Ryan White funded agencies, including subrecipients of Part A and B. Then it also looks at staff support around stigma. Then it looks at support for the community and involvement of the community in the agency as it relates to stigma. And finally, in the 4th part, organizational readiness for change. And so as people answer these questions, you begin to kind of see where your agency fits in a universe of alternatives that begin with completely not doing anything about stigma, even possibly supporting it or making it possible, to what one would imagine as the ideal stigma reducing agency. So it helps you identify steps along the way there. And one of the things that we're doing with the training groups that we will start doing next month, actually, is what we're calling the facilitated Escalate organizational assessment, because we want to develop the tool both as something individuals can use, but also as something that an organization can use to come to a kind of consensus understanding of our agency's relationship to stigma and what we might be able to do about it. I can tell you that we're starting it off with the New York City Department of Health, who have engaged us to do a facilitated process with them, and we will be approaching more. And one of the things that I'd like to say to the Part A and Part B recipients on this call is that this may be a tool that you can use with your sub-recipients to understand what the state of stigma is in your state and in your metropolitan area, and something that your planning councils can use to think about what is the state of it, what can we do about it. And I know my time is brief, so I'll mention one more thing and then turn it back over to Terrell, is that we will also be developing a cultural humility tool in the Escalate evaluation, because cultural humility is a concept that's been around for a while, but measuring it in an HIV context is not something we've done before. Our friends and colleagues in the mental health world have taken some strides there, and so we're adapting some of the tools that they've used to learn how to examine cultural humility in the context of HIV and AIDS services. And those results are extremely interesting as they've been coming back as well. With the evaluation of Escalate, we hope to have these tools in a state that is ready to be able to be replicated and disseminated around the country, and hopefully to help the Ryan White program at HRSA understand some alternatives it might have down the road for really building sustainable mechanisms for reducing and keeping stigma low. And I think that's about all I'd have to say. I think at the end, I guess the last thing in supplement to the facilitated EOSA idea, our evaluation team would work with the organizations who'd be identified for that aspect of the project. And, it's a half-day meeting where we would use the tool together and try to build a consensus process. And it's very exciting to imagine doing, and it's very exciting to start doing. And we look forward to seeing you guys in the process over time. Thank you very much, Terrell and NMAC, for the time and for letting us contribute and participate in Escalate as well.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Thank you for sharing. As you can tell, we are developing some really wonderful, really game-changing tools that we hope to transform the work that we do around stigma. So thank you to John and the TRX team for leading us in our creation of our amazing tools. Any questions before we wrap up our presentation today? I'm not sure if we had any questions in the chat box, but if anyone had any questions that they'd like to add, we are open to taking any questions before we conclude today.
Hey, Terrell, we don't have any questions in the chat or on YouTube or the Facebook live feature at all.
All right, I'll give it a few more seconds before we depart. That might mean that we were just extremely thorough in our explanation of everything, which is always great. So yes, if you do have any questions, as I said, I know sometimes it's difficult on a webinar setting to ask questions. You may think of questions afterwards. Please feel free to get in touch with us. You can email us at escalate@nmac.org. We're always willing to set up a one-on-one call or a Zoom meeting. As I said, we're willing to discuss the project with you. We're willing to discuss where you feel like you may be best aligned to join the project. You don't have to participate in just one track. You can send the team through training, and you can also be a part of TA or the learning collaboratives. As I love to say, there's no wrong way to enter the Escalate program. Just get in touch with us. If you'd like to schedule a training or learn more about TA or learning collaboratives, email us at escalate@nmac.org. And if you don't have anything else, it was great talking to you all. Thank you for our partners for joining the call today. Thank you, Ken, Cora, for joining as well. And we hope to see you on the road here soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.